The day that was supposed to be the happiest of my life began like a dream. The flawless white dress, the flowers delicately arranged throughout the hall, the subtle scent of roses filling the air. I stared at myself in the mirror as my mother adjusted the veil in my hair. My eyes sparkled with emotion, but deep down, an unsettling feeling had settled in my chest. "She's here." That was what my best friend whispered as she approached. I didn't need to ask who she was talking about. Linda, my future mother-in-law. The door suddenly swung open, and there she was, dressed in an elegant outfit, a cold smile on her lips, and eyes scanning me from head to toe. "We need to talk." Her voice was firm, as if she were giving an order. My mother looked at me with uncertainty, but I nodded, trying to stay calm. We moved to a more private corner of the room. The moment the door closed, her smile disappeared. "This wedding should never be happening," she said bluntly. My heart pounded, and for a moment I thought I had misheard her. "Excuse me?" My voice came out low, almost inaudible. "You will never be good enough for my son," she continued, crossing her arms. "I tried to warn him, but he's blind, and since he won't listen to me, I'll make sure your life is a living hell myself." With every word, a chilling sensation spread through my chest. Linda spoke with such terrifying conviction, as if she were completely certain she would keep her promise. "You have no right to talk to me like this," I shot back, trying to keep my voice steady. She let out a quiet laugh, filled with contempt. "Right? I do whatever I want. And don't worry, sweetheart, you'll soon learn your place." She turned and walked out of the room, leaving behind a heavy, suffocating silence. My knees weakened. I took a deep breath and looked at myself in the mirror again. My hands trembled, my eyes filled with doubt. Should I go through with this? I remembered all the times she had made me feel unworthy, the subtle humiliations, the fake smiles at family gatherings. But I also remembered the man waiting for me at the altar, the love I felt for him. Andrew was a good man, cheerful, caring. He always made a point to listen to me, support me, and encourage me to follow my dreams. From the moment we met, I knew he was the love of my life. He had a sweet way of looking at me, a smile that brightened my days, and infinite patience when dealing with my insecurities. We started dating quickly, and 2 years later, we were getting married, certain that our love was strong enough to overcome any obstacle. I swallowed the doubt Linda had planted in me and adjusted my veil. I thought of Andrew, of his affectionate and protective nature, and how he had always done everything to make me happy. Even with my heart unsettled, I would walk down that aisle. The aisle seemed endless. The guests looked at me with warmth, but I could feel the weight of Linda's gaze piercing through me, like a shadow always looming. White flowers adorned the pews, and a soft murmur of emotion filled the church. Then my eyes met Andrew's, and for a moment, all the fear disappeared. His smile was a safe harbor, a reminder that I was there for him, for us. I truly believed that our love was strong enough to face any challenge. But at that moment, I had no idea that I was about to make the biggest mistake of my life. The first day of marriage should have been one of the happiest of my life. Our honeymoon awaited us, and Andrew seemed radiant. The night before had been intense, and for a moment I tried to ignore the unease that Linda had planted in my heart, but I knew I couldn't live with that weight. I spent some time recalling the wedding reception. At various moments, his mother, now my mother-in-law, seemed to be at the center of attention, monopolizing conversations, interrupting toasts, and even positioning herself strategically in photos, as if the wedding were hers and not ours. My family and friends noticed, exchanging discreet looks of discomfort, but no one had the courage to say anything. What could I have done in that situation? confront her in the middle of the celebration, or just pretend I hadn't seen it? As we packed our bags for the honeymoon, I took a deep breath and decided to tell him. Andrew, your mother came to see me before the wedding. He looked up, absent-mindedly folding a shirt. Oh yeah? What for? She said this wedding should have never happened. My voice trembled slightly, but I continued. And that she would make my life a living hell. Andrew laughed, but not in a light-hearted way. It was a short laugh, almost disbelieving. That doesn't make any sense. My mom can be tough sometimes, but she would never say something like that. His response hit me like a punch. She did, Andrew. She looked me in the eyes and said it. He sighed and ran a hand through his hair. Maybe you misunderstood. She was nervous. It was a big day. I really don't think my mom would do something like that. His disbelief hurt me more than Linda's words. So, you think I'm lying? My hands shook, and my voice came out higher than I expected. He looked at me with a tired expression. I'm not saying that. It's not like her. She's always supported me in everything. She supports you, but she's never fully accepted me. I was so frustrated that I felt tears threatening to spill. Andrew, please, believe me. I wouldn't make something like this up. He took my hands, his expression softening slightly. Babe, let's not fight about this. I love you. Let's enjoy our honeymoon. We'll deal with everything later. I wanted to believe that he would. But deep down, something told me this was only the beginning. The first few days after the honeymoon were surprisingly peaceful. Andrew and I were finally enjoying our life together, and for a moment, I thought maybe I had exaggerated my worries. But that illusion quickly shattered. One day, when I arrived home after work, I immediately sensed something was off the moment I opened the door. The familiar scent of my usual perfume had been replaced by something different, and the furniture was out of place. My heart started pounding. I walked into the living room, and to my surprise, there was Linda, sitting comfortably on my couch, holding a cup of tea as if she were in her own home. Oh, you're home, she said with a wide smile. I decided to stop by and make a few improvements. This apartment needed a more sophisticated touch. My eyes swept across the room, and I saw that she had rearranged the furniture. Our apartment, our home, now had her signature all over it. Linda, what are you doing here? My voice came out more controlled than I expected. She let out a quiet laugh, as if my question were naive. Oh, sweetheart, I'm Andrew's mother. I thought you'd appreciate a little help organizing things better. Before I could respond, the door opened, and Andrew walked in. He stopped for a moment, looking at me, and then at his mother. I expected him to ask what was going on, to see how absurd this was, but instead, he just smiled. It looks good, doesn't it? He said, tossing his keys onto the table. My breath caught in my throat. Linda smiled triumphantly. It was as if she knew exactly that I wouldn't have a say in this. When she finally left, I confronted Andrew, furious about why his mother had a key to our home without me knowing. She asked for it, in case we ever had an emergency. We can count on her, he replied, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. My indignation only grew. And you didn't think it was necessary to ask me first? This is our home, Andrew. You can't just give the keys to someone else, not even your mother, without discussing it with me. He sighed, rubbing his hands over his face. You're overreacting. She's my mom. She's just trying to help. Help? Andrew, she came in here and changed everything without even asking me. Don't you see how invasive that is? He crossed his arms, his tone hardening. You're making a big deal out of nothing. My mom has always been present in my life. She knows what's best for me. For us. My heart tightened at those words. I was starting to realize that, to him, I would never come before her. Time passed, and Linda's presence in our lives only became more constant. It was as if the apartment was no longer mine, but a place where she made the rules. Every visit was accompanied by subtle criticisms, unexpected changes, and a constant insinuation that I was never good enough for Andrew. One random Sunday morning, Andrew and I were in our bedroom, enjoying some time together, when we heard a noise in the kitchen. Andrew went to check, and there she was, cooking Sunday lunch as if it were her own house. When she saw me, she even commented with a sarcastic smile, "I thought you two would never leave that room." I felt my face burn with indignation. "Linda, you can't just walk in like this. This is our apartment, and at the very least, you should let us know before coming over." She raised an eyebrow, as if my reaction was over the top. "Oh, sweetheart, I was just trying to help. I know you two are still learning how to manage a home, so I thought you'd be happy to have lunch ready." Andrew looked between the two of us, clearly uncomfortable. "Mom, please let us know when you want to come over." She looked at him as if he had just betrayed her. "So now I have to ask permission to see my own son? How ridiculous, Andrew. I've always taken care of you." My heart tightened. He hesitated for a moment before sighing. "Mom, I just think we need a little more privacy." Linda huffed and went back to stirring the pot. "Do whatever you want, but don't say I didn't try to help." I looked at Andrew, hoping he would take a firm stance, but all he did was run a hand through his hair and sit down, avoiding my gaze. It was clear that, deep down, he was uncomfortable too, but he wasn't willing to confront his mother. In the midst of all this chaos, something unexpected happened. I had started feeling strange, excessively tired, with frequent bouts of nausea. At first, I ignored the symptoms, blaming them on the daily stress I was under. But as the days passed, doubt began to creep in. I decided to buy a pregnancy test, and with trembling hands, waited for the result. Time seemed to freeze when I looked at the test. One line. Just one. I wasn't pregnant. Relief and unease mixed in my chest. The mere possibility of carrying a child had made me see a reality I had been avoiding. How would it have been to bring a baby into this suffocating dynamic? How could I ensure that my child wouldn't grow up surrounded by manipulation and silent battles? The truth was, the idea of motherhood in this context terrified me. I loved Andrew, but our marriage was starting to feel like unstable ground. And what if a child only tied me even more to this unbalanced relationship? I sighed and threw the test in the trash. I needed to make a decision. Something inside me told me that ignoring the signs was no longer an option. After the scare of thinking I was pregnant, I started seeing my life through different eyes. I realized that, out of love for Andrew, I had ignored several warning signs. But now, they were impossible to overlook. Something inside me had started to break. My relationship with Linda remained unbearable. Her visits became even more frequent, her opinions increasingly invasive. I tried talking to Andrew, but he always downplayed the situation, saying his mother just wanted the best for us. And then it happened. One night, I came home from work earlier than usual. The silence in the apartment felt strange, and as I stepped into the living room, I saw Linda sitting on the couch with a satisfied expression. But what truly shocked me was seeing all my belongings being removed from our bedroom. "What is going on here?" My voice came out louder than I expected. Linda turned to me with a cold smile. "Oh, sweetheart, Andrew finally realized that this marriage was a mistake. We're just organizing things." My heart pounded. "What did you just say?" Before Linda could respond, Andrew appeared. He had a hesitant look in his eyes, but the shock on his face revealed that he hadn't expected me to arrive so soon. "Andrew, what is this? Why are my things being taken out?" He looked at his mother, then at me, and let out a sigh. "My mom thinks maybe it would be best for us to take a break. She's worried about how you've been treating her and how that's affecting me." Violet, you know I've been responsible for my mother ever since my dad passed away. My blood boiled. And what does that have to do with kicking me out of my own home, Andrew? Do you really think it's normal for your mother to decide what happens in our marriage? He avoided my gaze, clearly uncomfortable. It's not like that. I just think that, right now, maybe it would be good for us to get some space. I looked at Linda, who still wore her fake look of concern, and I realized that she had already won this battle before I even knew I was fighting it. We're packing everything up, and you can stay at your parents' house, he continued hesitantly, as if trying to soften the brutality of the situation. I let out a humorless laugh. You're really telling me that your mother decided this for us? Andrew, this is a marriage, not her game to control. Linda stood up, crossing her arms. Sweetheart, you never understood your place here. Andrew finally realizes that now. I looked at him, waiting for him to defend me, to say something, but all he did was lower his head. And in that moment, I understood. Andrew would never choose to stand by my side. I took a deep breath, feeling anger and disappointment bubbling inside me. Then, I lifted my chin and stared at Andrew. If someone is leaving, it's you. I'm not going anywhere. This is my home too, and I refuse to be thrown out like a mistake. If your mother is so important to you, go live with her. After all, you two deserve each other. Andrew's eyes widened, shocked by my reaction. Violet, it doesn't have to be like this. We can work this out. Work this out? After you planned with your mother to kick me out without even talking to me? The only thing that needs to be settled here is who actually has a voice in this marriage, and clearly it's not me. Linda let out a mocking laugh. Andrew, don't lower yourself. Grab your things and let's go. He hesitated, but deep down, he knew I was right. Lacking the courage to stand up to his mother, he grabbed a few bags and left, leaving behind a silence that, for the first time, brought me peace. The days that followed were a mix of silence and relief. Andrew had left the house, taking only a few bags, and the realization that he had made a mistake he might never be able to fix. For the first time in a long while, the house truly felt like mine. However, Linda wouldn't give up so easily. Even from a distance, she kept trying to manipulate Andrew so he wouldn't try to fix things. Still, he called me, sent messages filled with regret and hints that he would never find someone like me again. As the days passed, clarity took over. After 30 days, I no longer had any doubts. It was time to move on. I called a lawyer, a longtime friend, and together we went through every detail to officially file for divorce. When Andrew received the papers, he was in disbelief. He called me multiple times, his voice choked with tears and desperation. I could tell he was finally beginning to wake up from his mother's control. But I knew this was just the beginning. Linda wouldn't give up so easily. Finally, the day of the divorce signing arrived. Andrew and I met at the lawyer's office, the air thick with tension. He looked at me as if searching for something, a trace of the woman he still believed he loved. I shouldn't have listened to my mom. I shouldn't have left. His voice trembled as he looked at me, as if pleading for forgiveness. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked hesitantly, as if hoping for one last chance. I nodded firmly. I should have done this a long time ago, Andrew. He sighed, running his hands over his face. I never realized how much my mom interfered. I thought I was protecting my family. But now I see that I was the one who destroyed it. I just gave him a sad smile. It's too late to realize that now. As the pen slid across the paper, I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. Linda may have won the battle, but in the end it was Andrew who lost everything. The months that followed the divorce were a process of rebuilding. Little by little, I rediscovered my freedom and what it truly meant to live for myself. The house, which had once been a battleground between me and Linda, was now my sanctuary. Every space began to reflect who I really was, free from interference or constant criticism. With each passing day, I felt the lightness of no longer needing to prove my worth to someone who had never accepted me. My professional life flourished. I surrounded myself with true friends, and for the first time in a long while, I woke up every morning without a weight on my chest. News about Andrew reached me occasionally. Some friends mentioned that he had distanced himself from Linda, moved to another city, and was trying to rebuild his life. They said he never forgot me, that he carried his regret like a shadow, a weight he would never be able to shake off. I never forgot Andrew. He was a great love, an important chapter in my story, but a chapter that needed to be closed. Looking back with fondness didn't mean wanting to relive the past. I had to move forward, and that's exactly what I did. I learned not to carry the past as a burden, but as a lesson. What I went through wasn't in vain. Now I knew who I was, what I wanted, and, most importantly, what I would never accept again. And above all, I knew that my true happiness would never depend on someone else. It had always been within me, waiting for the right moment to bloom.